What is up, you freaky folks? My name is Nick, and welcome to my channel where I cover all things horror, whatever you're watching. I'm making videos about. And a very special welcome to my Halloween special. It's night number 3 of the 13 nights of Halloween. I'm spotlighting 13 movies that I like to watch in October to get in the Halloween spirit, and hopefully they'll do the same for you. These aren't going to be traditional reviews because I really just want to talk about why I like them. And I'm really excited to talk about The Sentinel from 1977. And I'm going to warn you now, there will be spoilers.
It's one of the nicer tree-lined blocks in New York, and only 20 minutes from the center of town. Oh, and just around the corner there's a supermarket and the cleaners.
Allison is a model and actress living the high life in New York City. Even though she plans on marrying her boyfriend, she wants to maintain her independence by living on her own. She finds herself a nice apartment, but shortly after moving in, she begins to experience strange events that lead her to believe there is something sinister going on in her building.
There is danger everywhere. There is evil everywhere. The Sentinel.
This is the part where I have to say, if you have not seen this movie, do so immediately. Stop the video now, run out of here, do what you have to do, but avoid every plot synopsis on the way. Just kind of like cover your eyes as you hit the play button and just watch it, because I'm telling you, every synopsis, every blurb, the tagline on the poster ruins the movie, completely gives it all away. I personally watched this movie without knowing all of the twists and turns, and I think that's why I like it so much. And if you have had it spoiled for you, I can see exactly why you wouldn't like it. But I want everyone to have the same experience that I did and watch this movie blind, so if you can, do that. From here on out, I'm ruining the entire thing. I really like the main character, Allison, because I totally relate to her need for her own space. That sounds like the plot to the movie Of My Own Life. But once she moves in, she finds this is no dream home because there are all these weird noises that are keeping her up at night and affecting her work life. And as an elderly individual myself, I gotta tell you, sleep deprivation is no joke. So Allison moves in and she begins to meet all of her kooky neighbors. She even goes to a birthday party for a cat. It's very progressive. They're all strange people that feel completely out of place, and then the noises begin. So Allison goes to complain, and that's when she learns that the only other tenant in the building is the blind priest who lives above her.
Nobody has lived in that building for 3 years.
Spooky! That part creeped me out so hard the first time that I watched this movie. Knowing all of those people were actually ghosts gets right under my skin, and I think that's why I like this movie, because all of the scares are simple but very effective. What I really like about Allison is that she isn't just this beautiful, successful woman floating through life and then all of a sudden she can't get enough sleep. She has her own mental health struggles, and she's trying to work past a suicide attempt from years prior, and I think we've seen this in a lot of horror movies where there's a character who may be crazy and they start seeing these visions, all of their internal horrors manifest in the real world, or do they? That happens in The Sentinel, but the creepy things that Allison sees roaming her apartment building are much more horrifying and well done than I've seen in other movies. Now we have to talk about the scariest part of this movie because it is so good. I love it. This is the best. So Allison, she's being woken up every night and she's like, what the hell is going on? So of course she decides to go check out what's going on upstairs in her nightgown with a flashlight, because this is a horror film, and I just have to show you this. It's so scary. It's so scary.
Hello?
This scene was featured in Bravo's Scariest Movie Moments way back in the early 2000s, and that's where I initially heard of this movie. But watching the scene play out in the film with context, so much scarier.
What do you want from me? Who are you?
So at this point, Allison is exhausted and traumatized, and the movie kind of loses steam as her boyfriend takes over and does the investigating of all things unholy to figure out what's going on. This is where the movie becomes very religious-based, which normally repels me, but it works so well within the story that it still keeps me on board. And now for the big reveal. This is such a bummer because this is the part of the movie that is so heavily spoiled, and the whole story builds towards this moment. So it's very frustrating, but this is the whole deal. The apartment building has been built on an entrance to hell, and that blind priest upstairs, he is the Sentinel, the guardian who is there to protect Earth from hell, and Allison has been chosen to be the next Sentinel. Dun dun dun! Like, fuck, man, that sounds terrible. I wouldn't do that. It's fascinating because it's a horror that comes from a sort of obligation that's been thrown on you, but also, like, how do you not pick up the mantle and keep the floodgates to hell closed? And I'm agnostic. I have to touch on the biggest problem with this movie, and that's that during the finale, there are a whole bunch of people with real physical deformities that are used to represent the inhabitants of hell, as they all just start wandering around the apartment building. Now, I shouldn't even have to say this, but I used to work with a bunch of people with physical and mental disabilities, and to use them as the representation for, like, demons and shit is about as ignorant as it gets. It's really unfortunate and disappointing. This is a very repulsive aspect of the film. What I do like about this ending is that Allison is just running around this building with all of these ghostly apparitions popping out, and that's exactly what I like to see in my supernatural thrillers. And it works so effectively because it ends on this emotional high note for Allison, who I think is one of the most underrated horror movie characters that no one really talks about. Sure, she kind of takes a break throughout, like, the second act, but honestly, her whole story and journey is exactly why I connect with this movie. Except for, like, the whole Jesus aspect, which is, like, a lot of it, but whatever. Occult horror became really popular in the late 60s, throughout the 70s, with Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, The Omen, and even the Amityville Horror. And I think The Sentinel totally gets lost within the conversation, and I think it's truly one of the greats. Why I like to watch it around Halloween is when I was growing up, all of those other 70s horror movies were the ones that were touted as the ones you want to watch around Halloween. Those are the good ones. And after discovering The Sentinel, I feel like this movie does exactly what I want out of old school horror, especially around this time of the year. And personally, I think The Sentinel is the scariest of the bunch. I'm gonna give The Sentinel a 4 out of 5. It has its flaws and some things that don't work for me, but personally, I feel like it's one of the greats that needs to be appreciated more. I do want to comment really quickly on the bizarre sexuality in this movie because, you know, in 70s movies, the boobs were everywhere, and the sex and nudity used in The Sentinel, it's all done in a very creepy way. It's weird. I don't know. I feel like it's obviously commenting on the church's view of sex, from masturbation to homosexuality. It's all bad. It's scary. And this is one of the aspects that makes me really appreciate The Sentinel, because it deals with all of this religious material, which never clicks for me. But somehow in this movie, it totally works. What did you guys think of The Sentinel? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. I've been wanting to talk about it forever, but I can't without getting into the spoilers. So it was very satisfying to finally do this video. Thank you for joining me for my Halloween special. Tomorrow we're gonna keep the fun going with a bunch of scary stories. Until then, feel free to follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any creepy content. That's it for this video, but I won't stop you from watching another.
The Sentinel. The most frightening motion picture experience of your life. And the most revealing. Turn around. Look behind you.